Okay, here's a typical long run, and here's how you can adapt it slightly to make it work for you so that you're getting a lot more out of that long run. If you're running every weekend and wondering why you're not getting faster, why you're not improving, today I'm going to give you the exact 24-mile long run that somebody has sent to me that can be tweaked slightly to give you way more performance. And this might be the exact change that you need to find the results from your training. I'm Grantham, a coach and a professional ultra runner who went from running a marathon in 4 hours and 25 minutes to running a marathon in 2 hours and 21 minutes and representing my country at both the marathon and the ultra marathon. And when I understood what I'm about to tell you, all of a sudden those marathon times that I was running started to become my long run times, the pace that I was able to hold throughout the duration of a long run. And when those become your training times, imagine how much faster you can go in a race. So for context, yesterday I gave you 3 better long runs than a very typical 32 kilometers with 12 kilometers at marathon pace at the end. And I got this response. Thanks for these, Lee. Would you recommend 24 miles long run done as 20 miles steady and the last 4 miles at marathon pace? Now, you've got to remember, you're putting all of this effort into your running, all of this time commitment into your running. Most of you are running between 4 and 6 times a week, which is probably between 5 and 8 hours a week. And in those big key sessions, midweek interval session and the weekend long run, you want to be executing them as well as you possibly can to get as much super compensation, as much improvement from those sessions as you possibly can. And when it comes to the long run, if we can just tweak something, change it slightly so that you can get an extra 5 or even 10%, imagine over the course of the training schedule how that compounds to make you a completely different runner who's confident on the start line to hold a brand new pace. So first of all, we need to understand from that 24-mile long runs, 20 miles steady. What do you mean by steady? And it's funny because if you ask 3 different runners what their interpretation is of steady running, they might give you 3 different answers. But the key thing we need to understand from that is what is the difference in pace from your steady running to the jump up in gears to you going at marathon pace. And my point from yesterday's video is if we're doing 20 kilometers easy zone 2 and then we switch up and do 12 kilometers at marathon pace, and that's a big jump in effort and pace, then all of a sudden we're shocking the system, we're shocking the body at exactly the wrong time, an hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours later, after long run, easy zone 2 running, we're shocking the body, and therefore we're asking for trouble in the form of injury or not being able to hold pace. So if that steady pace, let's say his marathon pace is 5 minutes per kilometer or 8 minutes per mile, and the steady pace is 20% slower, so a minute slower. So he's going from 6 minutes per kilometer and jumping up to 5 minutes per kilometer. That's going to be a shock to the system. But the way that we improve that is from 14 or 16 miles, you can gradually up the pace, and maybe between 14 and 16 miles, we're doing 550 per kilometer, and then 540 per kilometer, 530 per kilometer, and we get into the last 4 miles where we're executing those at marathon pace at 5 minutes per kilometer. It's often that our definition, and as I said, it varies, but it's often our definition of steady is not so different from our marathon pace. So in that case, and again, we need to know the specifics, but in that case, if this is a long 24-mile run and a lot of it is very close to marathon pace and finishing with marathon pace, it's probably, in the build-up to a marathon, it's probably too much. And this happens a lot with runners where they overtrain, they overdo it, and therefore they arrive at start line not ready to execute. In actual fact, they're fatigued. And if you look at that as a lack of confidence, that you wanted to train so hard because you weren't confident in your own ability to execute on race morning, then it usually puts you back in check. And so the way, or another way you can improve that run is just to do 24 miles steady, but reduce that pace. So we're doing 24 miles, for example, if his marathon pace is 5 minutes per kilometer, we're doing it at 6 minutes. So we're doing it 20% slower. If that's comfortable enough for him to be there for 24 miles. But the key point here is if that's 20 miles relatively slow running and then we're going up in gear and you're shocking the system, there's the added injury risk. And what we're trying to get from that running is probably, okay, fast finish, but also a tick in the box that after a long run, you can still do marathon pace. Then we could improve that run by doing something like this. You could do something like 18 miles with a lot more at marathon pace, but exactly when you're fresh enough to execute. So you're building that confidence that you running over the ground at marathon pace. And that might look something as simple as the 18 miles broken up into 3-mile segments, and you're doing 2 miles at marathon pace and then 1 mile 10 to 20% slower, and then repeat 6 times. And what that's then giving you is 12 miles at marathon pace and 6 miles a little bit easier, so you can execute that 18-mile run. So more time at marathon pace, more confidence, because that marathon pace is at the right time when you're fresh enough to be able to, and you're still on fatigued legs, but you're fresh enough to be able to hit those paces, which is not just building your confidence, but it's also giving you lots of time practicing the pace that you want to move over the ground for the entire duration of the marathon. Another way you could improve that run, if it is a case that your definition of steady is very close to marathon pace, so the whole 24-mile run is probably a bit overkill and you're going to get to the start line fatigued, then we could also improve that run by just doing 24 miles long slow distance, conversational, nice and easy in zone 2. So there's plenty of options there to make that better, to improve that run and to get more from it. But always be thinking, what's the purpose of this run? What's the purpose of this long run? How can I improve it? And how can I remove or reduce the risk so that I'm not putting myself in the danger zone of trying to overcompensate at a point in a run where I'm already fatigued, but the run is requesting me to do marathon pace when I've been jogging or going very easy for a long period of time. Here's some more examples of great long runs that will help you get fit before your marathon race.